Okay, so last time we did old school. This time we're going antique. Oh, seriously? Hey guys, welcome to this Ork Codex retrospective with me, 6+ Stevo. So we've arrived here at the 2nd edition Ork Codex. This codex was very kindly provided to me by one of my awesome subscribers, Matt Dillingham. So Matt, thank you very much for providing me and the channel with this, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers and subscribers are also just as appreciative, because this is really cool to get my hands on this. I was about to purchase this on eBay. I think I mentioned that in an earlier video. Matt very kindly got in contact with me and said, I've got a copy, I have no use for it, and I'd love to provide it for you to take a look back on the channel. So yeah, that's brilliant. It saved me a few quid, and it's got this video a little bit earlier. This has actually been sitting here for quite a while. It's been a while till I've managed to get round to making this video, but better late than never. Here we are. So yeah, Ork Codex 2nd edition. We've done the 7th edition, we've done the 4th/5th edition, we've done the 3rd edition on the last one, which is a very popular one with a lot of people. We're now here at the 2nd edition Ork Codex, and yeah, what a treat this is. Look at this cover art first off. I absolutely love this. This thing just screams 90s. And that is the release date of this, 1994. This was, of course, for the 2nd edition of Warhammer 40k. The game went through a lot of changes then. We had come from Rogue Trader, which was very much a skirmish game. 2nd edition 40k was making big strides in bringing this up to much more battles, you know, armies against armies rather than sort of small squads. And in the early Rogue Trader days, it was very much almost a part battle game, part role-playing game. It was an incredibly different game to what we see today. And 2nd edition was the first sort of big step towards 40k as we know it today. But still, 2nd edition was in many ways a very different game. Armies tended to be a lot smaller. The rules were a lot more complicated. There was a lot more to the rules, as we're going to see as we start going through these pages and looking at some of the stats and things. But yeah, 1994 was the release date of this. This was written by Jervis Johnson, so very famous name there. And yeah, I just love this artwork. The reds and the oranges, really vibrant and really pops. You've got Ghazghkull here in his sort of earlier incarnation. Looks pretty beastly there. His model didn't sort of represent that quite so well, in my opinion. It was a good model for the time, I guess, but it is that particular model. I'm not talking about the current model we've got for Ghazghkull. The older model, which we will see in these pages, hasn't aged so well. You can see some of the cohorts behind him here. We've got the you know, World War I German-inspired helmet there, which is very cool on the Orks. Games Workshop loved orange during this time. A lot of the guns, they're not really represented on here. Everything looks quite sort of, I want to say realistic, although this is obviously quite a cartoony picture, but the weapons and stuff are all metal and chrome and stuff. But they loved, GW absolutely loved during the 90s, painting all their weapons big bright orange colours. And even at the time, I never understood that. I never liked that look. I know some people like it for a sort of nostalgic sort of feel and that sort of throwback. I don't really know why they did that. It never appealed to me. I much more prefer the sort of rusted metals and the realistic look of guns. But hey, there you go. Although with gun skins and things that you get on a lot of the shooter games these days, people running around with bright orange neon coloured guns, I guess that looks probably more apt today than it's ever been. We've got a squig here. That's a very different looking squig, much more canine like. Very cool in its own way. I like that. That is a proper squig hound right there. But yeah, we've got the Gargant or the Stomper behind. It looks very cool. yeah, it's just an awesome piece of artwork, and I absolutely love it. It's got this glorious 90s logo on as well. Just this thing just screams 90s. But let's take a look inside. So we've got some cool sort of battle scenes here with some, oh, these pages, instantly I'm taken back. You know, this is 1994. I'm 14 years old at the time this book's out, and flipping through pages of White Dwarf and seeing pictures like this, and my imagination's just running wild. And yeah, we've got a bunch of bad moons here. You can tell they're bad moons because not only are they yellow, but they've got their moon-shaped sort of hats on, which is very cool. Fighting against the pansies here. These boys are about to receive a right walloping. And I love this old custom scenery they did. I want to make some of these sort of things for my Ork scenery. I love these sort of old-fashioned sort of mud hut kind of... Got a kind of a Mexican vibe of some of this stuff. And you can see how that, you know, they sort of made them, I don't know whether that had been an old drinks bottle or a deodorant can or something they've used there, to great effect. I'd say this scenery on a board today would look just as good as it did back then. The other picture there, we've got some boar boys. I know a lot of people miss the boar boys, especially snakebite players. You can see from the banners that these guys are snakebites. Coming up against some blood angels there. Again, the Marines are about to receive a right pasting. So we've got our page here, produced by Games Workshop, 1994. I don't know where the credits are. I'm sure it was written by Jervis Johnson. I'm trying to see the... oh yeah. Rulebook cover by Mark Gibbons. Artwork, John Blanche, Wayne England, and Mark Gibbons. Stories, Bill King, Lindsley de la Du Paton. Oh yeah, by Jervis Johnson, right at the top there in bold. How did I miss that? So we get to our contents page, and there is a lot. This is quite a substantial book. 88 pages in this. It's not thin. It's you know, it's compared to what we saw with the 3rd edition codex, which came out afterwards, incredibly thin by comparison, although packed with a lot of good stuff. But this book is packed to the rafters with information and fluff and lore and rules and all sorts. So we've got the introduction section, the clans, so we're going through all the clans here. No mention of freebooters there. Orky know-whats. Again, this is all lore and fluff, talking about odd boys and Ork dreadnoughts, as they were called there, not Death Dreads. That's before GW wanted to have their original branding on everything, so they could copyright the hell out of everything. Pages here on Ork field artillery. Several pages just focused on artillery. That's a Bad Moon's wet dream, that is. Then the rest of it, just 2 pages on the rest of the Ork war gear. Ork forces, so the pages going into all the different kind of things, and you can see here Ogrins. Yes, that's right, Orks used to have access to Ogrins. How cool is that? Talks about the special rules for the army, characters, of which there are many, mobs, and support. So we've got quite special characters. Here we are. So you can see some famous names there, right at the top there, where he should be. Nazdreg, got Badrak, Grotsnik, Gazgol Thraka, and his good old sidekick, Makari, Zogrod Wartsnagger, and Wazdaka Gutsmek. Some characters that are beloved and cherished, and not many of these guys left these days, at least not in miniature form anyway. And then we've got a little bit going on about Ork glyphs, Ork tactics, and catalogue pages. So the internet was in its infancy at the time. I have vague memories of being around a friend's house and looking on Games Workshop's website around this time, possibly a little bit later, but sort of mid-90s. Yeah, that wasn't really so much of a well-known thing back then, and it was quite different. But yeah, so we go on to the introduction talking about the origins of the orcs and the orc race. Some more amazing artwork here. I do love some of this old black and white artwork. There's something about it. The artwork now is beautiful in its own way and incredible. And it's sort of, a lot of it's digitally enhanced and sort of done computerized, and it looks incredible. But there's something about this old-fashioned black and white hand-drawn artwork. There are imperfections in there. Some of the scales and things aren't right. Some things look a bit off sometimes. But I don't know, it sparks the imagination. And there's so much going on in this picture that each time you come back to it, you notice lots of little different things. And yeah, some of these characters look great. We've got a sort of, I think, a snake bite character here. We've got guys with stitches and piercings in, and there's a lot of character, and there's just so much depth to it. There's something very nostalgic about some of this old artwork. It's signed there by someone, but I can't see who signed that. It's back when GW allowed their artists to have credit for their work. We've got a picture here. Is that Wazdaka Gutsmech there, or just some random biker boy? I don't know, but it's quite a cool picture in its own right. And then we've got a good old boar boy here with his cyborg. Snakebite's looking very feral. Last of the Mohicans look going on there. Very cool. Sort of Native American kind of look. Goes on talking about knobs and warlords. So, knobs are orc nobles. They are wealthy, battle-hardened veterans who have got to where they are by being bigger, tougher and meaner than anybody else. Knobs are arrogant in the extreme, inflicting punishment on the spot to any lesser orc, Gretchen or Snotling who speaks out of turn or annoys them. The punishment usually takes the form of a sharp whack on the head. Simple but effective. The most powerful and prestigious knobs are given the title War Boss or Warlord. A knob can rise to such exalted status by showing genius in battle as well as commanding respect and obedience. The finest trophy a warlord can have is a Space Marine helmet. Orcs judge the worth of a warlord by the quantity and quality of the enemies he has overcome. To have on display the helmets of the finest warriors of humanity is the greatest possible testament of a warlord's prowess and right to leadership. So yeah, that's why you always see orc knobs and war bosses with trophies of sort of Tau helmets and Space Marine helmets and skulls and things, and very cool. Pit fights. Talking about sometimes how there's a challenge to leadership. You know, the biggest is the best, might is right. You know, orcs, so they get a chance to sometimes go in the fighting pits to fight for leadership of the tribe. We do have a little bit here about orc freebooters, the dirty pirate scum. The freebooters exist on the fringe of orc culture. They are small roving bands of pirates, bandits and mercenaries, belonging to no warband or clan. Naturally, they are eager for adventure, combat and booty, and are quite happy to tag along with orc warbands for whatever they can get. Talks about teeth and how teeth are used as currency. And then the squigs. And here we are into the orc clans. So we got the Bad Moons, Death Skulls, Goths, Evil Sons, Blood Axes and Snakebites. These have remained relatively unchanged all the way through, really. Let's have a look at the Bad Moons. The symbol of the Bad Moons clan is a grimacing yellow moon face wrapped in a halo of black flames. Bad Moons are the richest of all the orc clans. Orcs use their teeth for currency, and as Bad Moons' teeth grow faster than anyone else's, they are very wealthy. This is not regarded as an unfair advantage, as any orc who is tough enough can always bash a Bad Moon on the head and steal his teeth. The Bad Moons are what passes for a merchant class in orc society, continually buying, selling, swapping and conning to get even more teeth. Bad Moons like to display their wealth with expensive technical and highly decorated war gear. They usually have the best war gear and wear the most gaudy clothes, preferring a yellow and black pattern derived from the clan symbol. They also love to spend their teeth on food, which means that many Bad Moons are a bit stout around the belt. Yeah, Yeah, I've always quite liked the idea of having a sort of a Bad Moon war boss who's a bit of a porker, who's been enjoying the feasts after each battle and spending his wealth on squig pies and whatnot. Orky know-whats. We talk about the odd boys. So this obviously makes up the mech boys and the pain boys and everything. And talking about how the brain boys were these were engineered to sort of fulfill certain roles within Ork culture. So yeah, there are many types of odd boys. The most important are mech boys, pain boys, runt herds, and weird boys, each of which is described in detail later. Others include brew boys, diggers, sum boys, and yellers, all of which have their own specialised role in Ork society. There you go. So we don't. Some of these later ones we don't hear a lot about. Brew boys. I think by the name we kind of know what they're famous for. Talking about orcs in space. This is quite interesting, this bit. Millennia ago, a probe was sent out from Earth. Its mission to voyage to the end of the galaxy. The scientists who built it hoped it would someday return to its place of origin after circumnavigating the galaxy. The probe still sends back faint signals after 14,000 years adrift, and hasn't yet begun its return voyage, and it's uncertain if it ever will. To the utter despair of the Imperial tech priests who still monitor the probe, amongst the incessant battery of incoming signals, many are identified as Orkish. The depressing conclusion for mankind can only be that wherever they travel in space, there is a good chance that the Orks will have got there first, or will be arriving soon. So, yeah. For anyone who's been watching the channel lately and listening to the Two Bald Knobs podcast, we've talked about how sort of the Orks are perhaps not given the credit they're due, and afforded the they're not portrayed as threatening as they should be. And it's little tidbits of information like this that show that there is no defeat in the Orks. The Orks are here to stay, and they are a massive threat, and there is just never going to be an end to war. So, to an Orcs perspective, we've already won, because there is an unending, never-ending war, and that's a win in an Orcs book, isn't it? We've got talking about bikes, buggies, and the cult of speed. No mention of squig buggies and Megatrack scrapjets in here. Just good old buggies. We've got the Ork Dreadnoughts. An Ork Dreadnought is piloted by an Ork who has been surgically implanted into the machine by the combined efforts of an Ork Painboy and Ork Mechaniac. So yeah, this was I think in the earlier, I think we're going back to Rogue Trader. I think the Orks used to sort of literally sit in almost like a cockpit and drive these things, because you had a little hatch where the Ork's head could sort of poke out and stuff. But yeah, it was from this edition. I think this was the first edition which sort of changed the lore somewhat and had them being wired into it. But they were still called Ork Dreadnoughts there, not Death Dreads. Talking about custom weapons and the War. The War hasn't much changed. The War is still the same. The Ork Gods we talk about here. Ork Gods known as Mork and Gork. Gork and Mork are never defeated. They simply shrug off the blows of the other gods and laugh at them. Gork grins and bares his teeth and lands a mighty blow on the head of his adversary with his gigantic club. Or Mork, master of low cunning, waits until his foe isn't looking and then clobbers him with a low blow. Nice. And it's talking about how the Orks build gargants and things in their image. Obviously now we've got the Gorknaut and the Morknaut, which has taken it to that, next step. And then here we are, the pages talking about Ork field artillery. And we've got the tractor cannon, some of the special rules here, and some of the stats. Had a long range, 72-inch range. Whew. And the stat-wise, there's a lot of special rules. It just covers a lot of special rules. Reversed polarity. There you go, Doctor Who fans. The Gretchen firing the tractor cannon make a mistake and reverse the polarity of the beam. This means that the tractor cannon is dragged towards the target rather than the other way round. Roll the artillery dice again, re-roll any further misfires to see how far the cannon is dragged towards the target. Apply any damage to the cannon in the same way as you would for a vehicle. So this is the tractor cannon misfire table there, or we've got the good old overheating. More cool artwork there. I remember these tanks. I had some of these for Epic 40k, or Space Marine as it was called then, which was Epic basically. Very small scale, and those tanks with the steamrollers on them, death rollers, were very, very cool. Can't remember what that particular one was called. Nice piece of artwork there of like an Ork fortress with tanks barreling out of it. Very cool. We've got the smasher gun, which is still there, somewhat changed. Buzzer squigs, I think they've made a bit of a return in the new squig buggy. And look, we've got all different sort of roles and ranges and things that were needed depending on what you were shooting at. Foot trooper, bike / Terminator, other vehicle / dreadnought. So what you needed to hit, I guess, yeah, the chart below gives the D6 score required to hit different targets at different ranges. So there you go. So you kind of wanted to be at mid-range by the look of it to hit other vehicles. 24 to 36 inch range was where you wanted to be to hit on a 4 or 6. Range is too short or too long, odds get a bit harder to hit. As you can see, the accuracy of these things is not great. Rules were so different back then. We've got the squig catapult. Very cool. Very pretty much taken from fantasy, I think. The pulsar rocket and the splatter cannon. That's two we don't have anymore. As you can see, the splatter cannon would fire, and it would be like a bouncing Betty, basically. The cannon would fire its shot, and the thing would bounce around in random directions, causing horrendous damage, I'm sure. Possibly to your own lines, I can imagine. Which is a lot more of that going on back then. Randomness and craziness going on, which I know a lot of people miss. We've got the pulsar rocket. The pulsar rocket is a really special force field generator that is hurled into the midst of the enemy ranks by means of a solid fueled rocket. The rocket is carried to the battlefield on its own little launcher and is aimed and fired by its crew. The force field generator itself is a special kind known as a pulsar, a strange whirling machine that detaches from its parent rocket and glides to Earth by means of a parachute or anti-gravity motor, if the mech boy can dismantle a captured Imperial vehicle to get one. When it lands, the pulsar sends out powerful bursts of energy like ripples of stone makes when thrown into the pond. As they spread outwards, the ripples of energy become weaker and weaker. The enemy is thrown into disarray as any troops and vehicles that get in the way are knocked over or spun around. Very cool. The good old shock attack gun, which, look at this thing. I mean, we say about the rules being sort of simplified and stuff now, and this shows it. I mean, this thing's got pages of rules. And I think sometimes the simplification of the rules gets a knock by a lot of people, but I'm not going to look back with rose-tinted glasses and say this was better, because this isn't better. This worked back then. You've got to bear in mind that armies were a lot smaller. What we play now is like a 1500 points game. Back then, in terms of models on the board, would have been much smaller, and the game turns took a lot longer because of the amount of different rules. You had rules for vehicles to sort of turn, and there was a lot of depth to these rules, and that doesn't always make for a better game. Sometimes simplifying and streamlining stuff does make things better. There's a lot of cool stuff in this book. Would I want to go back to these rules? No. But there is stuff worth looking back on this, and some of 8th edition has borrowed heavily from 2nd edition. Some of this stuff like armor modifiers and things have sort of ripped from 2nd edition, but to go back to sort of days of this, I think it would slow the game down to a crawl. It really would. And this is hard stuff to learn. This is just for one unit to have all these different kind of things. There's a lot going on there. Ork War Gear. So it talks about flak armor, 5+ armor saves. Look, Ork heavy armor, 4+ saves, and the Ork mega armor. Oh, look at this though. We don't get this anymore. Mega armor confers a saving throw of 2 or more on a d6. In addition, any weapons fired by an orc wearing mega armor count as having a targeter, and so receive a +1 to hit modifier. Beautiful. Nice. If the orc fails his saving throw, there is still a chance that the Medi Squig Pack will save him. This is represented by allowing the orc a second saving throw of 4, 5 or 6 on a d6 if he fails his first saving throw. Oh, blimey. So back then, mega armoured orcs get the 2+ save, but they get a +1 to hit, and they get a 4+ feel no pain. Beautiful. Okay. Maybe I'd like to have that back. That is cool. Like I said, the rules were very different back then, though. Very, very different. Stormboy jump packs. We got the misfire table. Blow up in midair, blow up on landing, haywire, and wah. The jump pack refuses to shut down, carrying the Stormboy over the horizon and far away. Remove the Stormboy model from the table. Do not count him as a casualty for victory point purposes. He will be able to rejoin the warband in time for the next battle. Stuff like that just, yeah, that's the stuff that puts a smile on an orc player's face. Custom combi weapons. Here we go. This is, it's like sort of the early prototype of a death gunner there. That is one seriously nice looking piece of Dakar he's got there. We've got the Gretchen Blunderbuss, as they had then. Not a Grot Blaster. Although the blunderbuss is short range, the hail of shot it fires means that whatever it is fired at will certainly be hit. Therefore, a target fired at by a Gretchen blunderbuss is hit automatically, and no to hit roll is required. Auto hitting grots. Who would like some of that? Strength 3, damage 1, pretty much the same. Armor penetration, d6 plus 3. Okay. I'm going to go on to the Orc forces. We've got the Orc boys themselves. Well, it goes for all of them. So let's look at their stats here. They had a movement of 4. Cool. So they've sped up a little bit now. Weapon skill 3. Going upwards as we get to the war boss, where the weapon skill 6. Same with the ballistic skill. So a knob, a big boss, and a war boss increased their ballistic skill. That didn't happen, and they've got a ballistic skill of 3, not of 2. So they were a lot more accurate back then. Still had the strength 3, toughness 4, 1 wounds, initiative 2. That stayed pretty much the same all the way through. 1 attack, leadership 7. So their stats are, they've not changed a lot over the years. They've been tweaked and balanced and sort of better represent them, but they've generally stayed pretty consistent. I like the fact that you had the big boss back then, somewhere sort of between a knob and a war boss. That's quite cool. We've got the Grots, who could have a Grot champion, which is pretty nice. But they weren't any more accurate back then than the Orcs. Still, and not as weak either. Strength 3, toughness 3. I believe they're toughness 2 now. They are toughness 2 now, so they can get stomped on a lot easier now. And we got Snotlings, which we don't have anymore. Snotling base. Strength and toughness 1. Nice. They must have been the weakest unit in the game. They must have been. Strength and toughness 1. Dear Lord. That is just a full-on meat shield, isn't it? 3 attacks, mind you. I don't know what they're going to do with strength 1, though. And the good old runt herds. Runt herds may act as champions for units of snotlings and Gretchen. No other orcs may lead snotlings and Gretchen because they consider it to be a waste of time. And the runt herd was a bit of a beast, actually. He's a bit tougher than your regular orc. So, probably a bit better back then than they are now. I mean, they fulfill a role now, but they're not fantastic. We've got the good old Pain Boys, the Mechaniacs. Again, awesome artwork. Look at some of this stuff. It's really just inspiring. It gets the sort of creative juices flowing. This little fella looks happy. It's the Mad Boys and the Mad Boy chart. If they suffered madness. Mad Boys are extremely unpredictable. Their minds swirl with strange ideas or sudden momentary enthusiasms, and they tend to act as a single body. If one Mad Boy thinks he has lost his boot, the whole mob is likely to become obsessed with the idea of finding it. Such is the way with Mad Boys. To represent this, the Orc player rolls a d6 at the start of the game and consults the chart opposite. This establishes a basic madness for the Mad Mob. The mob is subject to the psychology rule indicated from then on. So yeah, you roll at the beginning of the game and see if your unit's going to be any use in game. And yeah, a unit of Mad Boys. Pretty cool stuff. And then we've got the Weird Boys. And that's quite a nice piece of artwork there as well. You see them all chained up. So you've got this. Weird Boys have a psychic mastery level of 2. Weird Boys are always escorted by 2 burly minders who must remain in base contact with him at all times. Their job is to hold the Weird Boy steady and stop him running off, and also to protect him from harm. The minders can fight normally as well as hold on to their Weird Boy. Yeah, a little bit different. We've got the Sniffer Squigs here, which we've seen return, I believe, in Age of Sigmar. I believe, with some of the new Grot characters in there. I've got sort of access to Snuffler Squigs, as I think they're called, which looks very rat-like, very cool. And it's the Weird Boy Warp Heads, which we've now got again in 8th edition with the use of a command point to upgrade a Weird Boy into a Warp Head. Good old Orc Boar Boys. Yes, movement 10, very nice. I know a lot of people would like to get them back again. And look at this, Ogryns. Ogryns are human mutants who are tall and massive. They stand almost twice as tall as an orc and are far more strongly built. They are massive, well-muscled frames, huge limbs, jutting jaws and thick, bony foreheads. Being so large, strong and brave, Ogryns naturally make good fighters, and many races attempt to recruit them into their armies, promising food or whatever else the Ogryns want in return for their services. On the whole, Ogryns are unbothered who they fight for, and they are often employed by the Imperium as well as Orc warlords. We've got a nice choice of them here. You've got your Ogryn, your champion, your hero, and your mighty hero. I did like in the old days where you could have sort of different levels of. You could go for your cheap one, or you could spend some more points and upgrade and get the hench guy. But yeah, Ogryns wouldn't really work fluff-wise now, because orcs generally, they, unless you're blood axes, I guess, they generally don't ally or fight with anyone that's un-orky, at least not for long. But you can kind of see how Ogryns would naturally sort of fit well with orcs. I think that this kind of carried over from fantasy again, where ogres were naturally and commonly seen fighting alongside goblins and orcs. So it kind of just carried through to 40k. Lovely Bad Moon picture here. We've got a Death Dread there. And we've got some cool Bad Moon boys here, showing off their flashy, snazzy war gear. Particularly this guy at the front in his mega armour. Mega armour looked very different back then. It was much more like, it looks like a sort of orky version of Space Marine armour. Blood Axe Commandos. See, not just commandos there, they were Blood Axe Commandos. So I don't know if this meant that only Blood Axes had access to commandos, or how it exactly worked. Yeah. The Storm Boys. And this is isn't really spoken about as much now, so I don't know if this has been retconned, but Storm Boys are essentially Ork youths. They are young orcs that are still growing. They're just they're basically like teenagers. They're new recruits, and they go through this phase where they sort of craving discipline, and they want to be very militaristic and professional, and they go through this phase which the other orcs think is a bit strange, but most of them grow out of it, but some of them stick to it. But that's not really talked about anymore, so I kind of think that's been retconned in sort of current editions. And then it goes on to showing how to make some orc banners, some cool things here, which I believe it says you can photocopy. Yep, permission to photocopy for personal use. Well, that's very nice of you. Permission to show on a YouTube video, I guess, as well. Yeah, got a lot of snake bite ones there. In fact, the vast majority of these seem to be snake bites. In fact, they virtually all are. We've got one for Zogrod Wartsnagger and Gazgol's Boss Pile. Freebooter Captain, Discord's Painboy, and Evil Sun's Mech Boy. And here we go, look at this. Here is Gazgol Thracker in all his glory, with good old Makari carrying his boss pole. Oh, Makari. Look at him smiling there. Little does he know that he's soon to meet his grisly end at this guy's backside. I mean, he's cool. Gazgol Thracker, he's got a very Genghis Khan vibe to him, which fits really well. Since then, he has grown a lot since then, but he does still need to grow a bit more. His current model is, you know, showing its age a bit. This model, in comparison, is tiny. Very cool for the time, but yeah, it wouldn't really represent him very well on the tabletop now. And then we've got a Zogrod Wartsnagger. Renegade Runtmaster, and this is the guy who breeds the Super Gretchen. Quite a cool model with a beard and everything, the crazy hair, and you can see a lot of design inspiration has sort of carried through with the grabber stick and everything there. The current runt herds sort of owe a lot of their design to this guy, I think. More cool homemade scenery here. Old school Storm Boys, looking very German. Coming up against some Ultramarines here. Who is this guy? He looks like some sort of Inquisitor or something. I'm unfamiliar with that model. I imagine that must be an Inquisitor. Blood Axe Commandos there, trying to be camouflaged, you know, enthusiastically, but failing in a bright red colours, but that works very well. Obviously it talks about how Blood Axes will try and imitate camouflage and stuff, but not really understand what the camouflage is for, or how it works, that it's actually supposed to blend in with your surroundings. But they have a go. Bless them. This is all heavy metal painting. You can see how much painting's come on over the years, but I mean these are great. The nostalgia is Mohawk guy there, looking very cool. Some of the old grots look cool. Look at the Mech Boy. Look at this thing, barely changed at all over the years. Wartrack Scorcher. Do you know what? In fact, the last model for this, I would say, is kind of worse than this one. This guy on the back looks like he's having a great time. The guy sticking his head out there. Lots of character in some of these things. I mean, they look sort of terrible by today's standards, a lot of this stuff, but it was a different time. The old smasher gun, which has grown a lot larger but is very similar in design. Bad moons look cool. The colour scheme looks cool. A lot of blue going on in there. They don't really get that anymore, but I quite like the yellow and blue. It looks quite cool. And we've got the old shock attack gun, complete with hosts of snotlings ready to be sucked up and shot out the other end. And these are the snotlings, I believe, that come straight from fantasy. I believe so, anyway. I don't know if that would have all come in as one kit back in the day, or whether they would have been bought separately in blister packs. I believe the large majority of what you're seeing here would be metal miniatures. We got the bully boys themselves, the goths, and a lot of these. I had lots and lots of these. These are all goths which came in the second edition box set, which came with a whole load of these goths, which all look the same, and a whole load of Gretchen, which all look the same. Look at these freebooters. What's this guy got? He's got like a cornetto on his head. Bone through the nose. You got the proper web with the pirate theme here. Very cool. Absolutely mental. There's Captain Jack Sparrow himself there. Here's some cool goths. Some of these guys look cool. Goth knobs. It's so 90s. They kind of almost look like Chaos Orks, don't they? Chaos had a very similar kind of feel with the big horns and skulls and stuff. Yeah, goths, they've improved in detail and stuff, but their aesthetic has not changed a lot at all. But it's cool to see that the different Ork boys and knobs are kind of represented differently, which we don't get anymore, to represent the different clans. Here's the Gretchen. Yeah, these guys, which I had many of with the set. The other ones that you could buy in the blister packs and stuff looks a lot better, in my opinion. I like this guy here. So he'd fit in great. Now, if I had that model now, he'd fit in with the grots perfectly. And I don't think would look out of place or aged. I think it would look very good. Some of these grots models have aged particularly well. These ones are very much old school of the time. The face and stuff is different, but ones like this I think would fit in well. A lot more goblin-like, I think. Yeah, look, here's the Ork Dreadnought, which I did have, but in cardboard form, which came in the box set. The second edition game came with the cardboard cutout of one of these. And look, there he is sticking his head out the hatch, but apparently he's wired in there. There he is, more scenery and stuff. Goes on to the snake bites. We've got that Last of the Mohicans thing going on. Look really cool, savage, feral. You can see why snake bites used to be so popular with the boar boys and stuff. Yeah, very cool indeed. A little bit here about the Death Skulls. How they like to loot and pillage and stuff. And this guy's gone full on with the blue, just a complete blue face. And then we've got war gear cards, which you could photocopy and cut out, or just cut up your book. I'm sure there's a few of these codexes all cut out and value reduced. Buzzer squig templates, there you go. Ork army list. They're talking about how you make your army. Very different back then. So talking about how you build your armies, and for example, you may spend up to a maximum of 50% of your points on support. So yes, different. So it was done by percentages. So you set like a 2,000 point game, and then you could have a certain percentage of a category. So heavy support or HQ and things, you could have up to a certain percent. So it was very different. It was quite simple in its own way. I think they kind of simplified it later on with the Force Org chart, which has now of course turned into detachments, and there's all different ones now. Oh, awesome piece of artwork of Badrock. That, imagine having a big picture of that framed. I would proudly have that. He looks cool as fuck. You would not mess with him. What a cool piece of artwork. Yeah, so we've got characters. You could spend up to 50% of your points on characters. At least 25% of your points has to be spent on mobs, basically troops. Support up to 50%. And there's all you had: characters, mobs, and support. Not fast attack, not heavy support, elites, all that. New Citadel miniatures for the Ork Army will be released in the future. Details of these new models and any special rules that apply to them will be published in White Dwarf magazine at the same time that the model is released. White Dwarf is available through all major newsagents, while the Games Workshop stores and mail order department carry the latest issue and a wide selection of back issues. So there you go. And there's been talk recently of a lot more of this coming back, of releasing rules and things in White Dwarf and articles and stuff. I think that's going to benefit, well, it's going to benefit Games Workshop for one, because they're going to sell more issues of White Dwarf. But also it's going to benefit all of us, I think, if we're getting new stuff and new rules and things that we can try, as long as it's not restricted to just bloody open play, which wasn't an issue back then. All your war gear list, and the points they cost by the look of it. Yeah. Special weapons: bolt gun, flamer, melter gun, plasma gun, autocannon. As you can see, a lot of the weapons the Orks carried were actually human-made weapons. They're very much shown as sort of pillagers, and they would scavenge weapons of other armies. And here we are with the so you've just got the three sections: characters, mobs, and support. And for your characters, you could have your war boss, 65 points. A battle standard, so you could have an Ork standard bearer or a Gretchen standard bearer. Then you've got your big boss. An Ork big boss, as his name implies, is a particularly large and unpleasant Ork knob who really enjoys bossing other smaller Orks around. The big boss's ability in combat ensures that he is respected, if not admired, by the Orks under his command. So yeah, just a sort of a lower level war boss. Good in smaller points games. Freebooter captain, blood axe commando captain, drill boss. That's for your storm boys, I guess. Yeah. Knobs. So they came in as characters. It says an Ork boys mob may include one knob to lead it. Okay, but so you got him for the boys mob, but his points went towards the characters section. Different. Mechaniac, pain boy, runt herd, weird boy. Runt herd, 18 points back then. Nice and cheap. They're too expensive these days, if you ask me. Weird boy, warphead, 194 points. Sheesh. Blimey. Mind you, I think they had some impressive powers back then. An Ogrin leader. If the army includes an Ogrin mob, then it may be led by an Ogrin leader. Okay, so your boss could be an Ogrin. That's pretty cool. I like this one. Look at this. Very blood axe, that is. Look at his little grot dude there. He looks like an evil little bastard, doesn't he? Smoking his cigar there. Cool. Very cool. Gretchen assistants. Yeah, some Ork characters are accompanied by a small retinue of Gretchen assistants who make sure their master's every command is carried out. The following characters are allowed to have up to 4 Gretchen assistants: war bosses, runt herds, mechaniacs, painboys, freebooter captains. Up to 1 assistant per character may be a champion. A Gretchen assistant may be given a Gretchen blunderbuss, auto pistol, or auto gun at a cost of 1 point. They could be given armour. Very cool. Then we are into the mobs. Essentially the troops and elite section rolled into one, I would say. So you've got a knobs mob at 15 points per model. They could have special weapons, assault weapons, be given anything from them sections. A knob may be given heavy armour for an additional cost of plus 7 points. Bad moon knobs may be given mega armour. So only bad moons could knobs could have mega armour. Blood Axe Commando mob, freebooter pirates. You could see very much back then that the clans were mixed a lot more, or certainly it was encouraged a lot more. The Mad Mob, Bad Moon Boys mob. Now I like this. Look at this. 12 points model. Because the Bad Moon's teeth grow faster than those of other orcs, they are the richest of all the orc clans. This means they can afford to buy the best and most expensive weapons and armour. So they come as standard with bolt pistol, axe and frag stick bombs and flak armour. Any boy may replace his bolt pistol for a bolter at a cost of 1 point. Any model may be given additional equipment chosen from the assault weapons, special weapons and stick bombs section of the war gear list. In addition, up to 2 models may be given weapons from the heavy weapons section of the war gear list. So you could really, really, really kit out a mob of Bad Moon Boys with some nice, tasty dakka, which is really cool. Your Death Skulls mob. They never throw anything away and are often armed with special combi weapons made from several guns welded together. In addition, any model may be given a custom combi weapon. Okay, so that's the, like I say, the sort of early prototype of Death Gunners, I think. Evil Sons Boys mob. An Evil Sons mob may be mounted on war bikes at an additional cost of 35 points. So yeah, you can see like the bikers and things weren't really a unit. It was an upgrade to the boys. You just paid the cost to give them bikes. Snake bites, they could be on cyborgs. So the different clans boys are much better represented here. You've got your Bad Moons with your special weapons. You've got your Snake Bites with their access to cyborgs. Evil Sons, access to bikes. Very cool, but I suppose a little bit restrictive if you want. I don't think it would work so well these days, but there's a lot to be said for this. I think this is all quite cool. Your Gretchen mobs. Gretchen mobs can have auto guns, or they can replace with auto pistols or a blunderbuss. I think the blunderbuss would have been the way to go, auto hitting. Snotling herd, no options for them at all. They just have hand weapons and do not wear armour. Then we go into the support. So we've got allies. Orcs will not normally ally with anybody except other orcs. Blood Axes, however, will use captured or traded Imperial vehicles and support weapons. To represent this, an Orc army that includes at least one mob of Blood Axe boys may use vehicles and support weapons chosen from the Imperial Guard or any Space Marine army list, and for the points cost indicated in those lists. Very cool. So yeah, it made including Blood Axes very worthwhile, because then you had a huge access to Imperial Guard and Space Marine tanks and artillery and stuff, so that's cool. The Ogrin mob. Could be given Ripper guns at 3 points, or mesh armour at a cost of 3 points. The Ork Dreadnought came with 2 power claws, a heavy bolter and a heavy flamer. Up to 2 arms may be upgraded to carry a las cannon or a missile launcher with frag and crack missiles at a cost of 25 points each. They haven't changed a whole lot over the years, really. Other than the name, Death Dreads now, not Dreadnoughts. Then we've got all the different artilleries. I won't go over those again. And we've got your war buggies, your war track, your scorcher, your war bike, your knobs bike, Ork battle wagon. And I think the old battle wagon there, I don't even think that was existed yet. I think that came later. Here we are, special characters. Nazdreg Ug Urd Grub, Bad Moon Warlord. Beautiful. And quite a cool piece of artwork for him. Nazdreg may have up to 4 war gear cards, one of which must be a custom shooter. Nazdreg may be given additional equipment chosen from the armour, assault weapons, special weapons, heavy weapons, transport and stick-bomb sections. So it's quite cool that characters are very restricted. You pick the character, it lists all his war gear and special rules, and that is it. You can't change a special character like you can with a generic, war boss or something. But back here, you could have the special character and then kit him out and tweak him and customise. And with the freedom of the list of stuff you could have, there's all kinds of crazy creations and combos you could come up with. Captain Flash Git Badruck. You've still got Badruck's Ripper Gun. Mad Doc Grotzneck Death Skull Pain Boy. And very similar, he's still as crazy then as he is today. More awesome artwork here. And then you've got Gazgol Mag Ork Thraka, mighty Goth warlord and leader of the War. So he costs some points. 135 points, plus 30 points for the custom blaster, plus 15 points for his adamantium skull. Ork Mega Armor with target a 2+ save and 4+ unmodified reroll if first save is failed. Gazgol may have up to 3 war gear cards. Be given additional equipment and weapons. And good old Makari, his battle standard bearer, costs 70 points. And he had a 2+ saving throw, which was never modified, to represent his luck. His luck is soon to run out, though, as he would find out. We got Zodgrod Wartsnagger, Snakebite Runtmaster. So he could have the Super Gretchen and Super Snotlings. So his Snotlings have a strength and toughness of 2. And yeah, so they're quite nice stats actually. Super Runts have enhanced abilities as a result of their selective breeding and through training, which is shown by the special set of characteristics below. Zodgrod will allow Super Snotlings to be fired through a shock attack gun. They are far too precious, so he would not allow them to be fired through a shock attack gun. Wazdaka Gutsmech, Evil Sons Mechaniac and Bad Ork Pain Boy. It goes on about Ork Glyphs. This is a cool, you can have a go at making your Ork language. Showing all your different kind of things to represent on your banners and stuff, to best show off the character of your war bosses and units. There's so much here. Look at it all. Very cool. Just very inspirational, and I'm sure a lot of people went through this and sort of added character and lore and fluff to their armies with banners and things that had a lot of meaning, which probably no one but them would ever really know, but a cool thing to do nonetheless. We've got a cool story here about Nuzgrond Nosebiter, boss of the Goths. I think I read this story actually, yes, I remember this story. It's talking about them being bombed and surviving an artillery bombardment. Ork tactics. Pretty much nothing's really changed. Crude and brutal as ever. More cool artwork. As you can see, these books are very black and white all the way through until you get to like catalogue pages and stuff. This guy looks cool. His Iron Gob and Bionics. And here we are. Conclusion. This will be an interesting read. Many people think that using an Ork army is simply a case of massing the boys together and wildly charging at the enemy. As I hope I've made clear above, this simply isn't the case. It takes considerable finesse on the part of the commander to use an Ork army well. It's easy to do well with a Space Marine army, but considerably more difficult to command an Ork army because it consists of large numbers of highly specialised troops. However, when used correctly, the Orks are more than a match for any army in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. That still holds true very much today. Space Marines, yep, easy peasy, very forgiving army. You know, lots of armour saves, lots of protection, good stats. Orks are still to this day much more specialised, much more random, a lot more fragile, and it does, you know, people think playing an Ork army is going to just be, like he says, charging in, and I've been guilty of doing that myself at times, and it doesn't work very well a lot of the time. You've got to synchronise your attacks and really kind of get your army working in unison. And here we are onto the catalogue section, onto the Snakebite Orks. I imagine a few of these are worth a pretty penny today. I wonder how many people have got some of these bits lying around in their bits box. Or how many still use some of these models today. I do like some of these old grots with the cannons. These Goth Scar Boys, oh, these would be cool today. Probably a little bit too small by today's standards, but it would be nice to see a kit sort of come out representing these now. Yeah. And there's the old metal dreadnought. I bet that thing fell apart constantly. That must have been a nightmare to keep in one piece. God, metal models, eh? Storm Boys. Blood Axe Commandos, some of them look very cool. Good old Gazgol Thraka and Makari. This was at a time as well, look at old Zodgrod Wartsnagger. You could buy him complete, or you could buy his boss pole, or him on his own without the boss pole. I used to love back in the day where you could go through the catalogues and order components and different parts. All the different Gretchen. Some of these must be so rare now. These are the ones I remember. I had so many of these bloody things from 2nd edition. You still see these around all the time on eBay and people selling them on. I'm not really sure why people buy these other than nostalgia, because they were okay for the time, you know. It gave you a cheap army quickly, but different arms and weapons. Here we are. There it is, there's the box game. That's the one that came with a Blood Angels army and an Ork army. Then we had Dark Millennium, the expansion, which was nothing more than a big box full of cards and books and stuff for extra weapons and war gear. Codex Space Wolves and Codex Pansies. Sorry, I mean Elder. And it's pictures like this that would have got people saying, I want to collect Orks. I want that army. And that still looks pretty impressive, even by today's standards. What an impressive scenery setup, and quite a cool looking army. And do you know what? I think those Death Dreads would fit very well in a current army. I don't think that would look too out of place, actually. Probably a bit more killer can size now than Death Dread size. And there we are, the back of the book. As you can see, this was bought in America in a shop called Riders. At the time, it was $24.95, which I imagine in '94 was a fair bit of money, actually. I don't know what that would have translated to at the time into UK pounds. But yeah, there we go. So there you go, guys. 2nd edition Ork Codex retrospective complete. I have reached the end temporarily for this playlist, these features. I do intend to do more retrospectives because there are other books that I want to cover. There are campaign books, there are rogue trader books, some of which are incredibly expensive and rare and hard to come by. But yeah, there's a lot of other things I want to cover. And I've realised just in doing this actually that I haven't yet covered Index Xenos. I never know how to say that. Sometimes I say Xenos, sometimes I say Xenos. But you know what I mean. It's probably a time I sort of take a bit of a retrospective look at that as well and see what life was like for us before we got our codex in 8th edition. But there you go, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much again to Matt Dillingham for providing us with this book so we could take a look at it and have a little wander down memory lane back to the glorious 90s. But anyway, guys, if you want to see more like this, please like, subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below. Did you have this book back in the day? Is this before your time? Do you like what you see in it? What do you think of this awesome artwork? Probably of all the Ork Codexes, my favourite front cover. And a fascinating read today as well. A fascinating read and very inspirational. There's some good inspirational pieces of artwork and stuff in here. It's very, very cool. I love having it in the collection. I've got a few more yet to add to the collection. As and when I do, I shall bring you more retrospectives and we will take a look at them together. Guys, thank you very much once again for watching. I'll see you on the next one. This is 6+ Stevo, signing out.